I portion part of the blame to the institution, to the powers that be, that doesn't give them the chance to strive. And also I blame them partly, which is one part I talk in my book, which I call the part I talked about the power of why. You know, that chapter I talked about, like, you know, I talked about slavery, for example, why slavery took so long, why it took that long for slavery to be eradicated. I said because the African Americans, the Black Americans didn't ask, didn't have the power to really question the authorities, didn't have the power to say, why are you doing this to us? Imagine what happened a few weeks ago. George Floyd died, yeah? The policeman killed George Floyd, yeah? And then that was when that was what broke the camel's back after the death of George Floyd. But imagine, have you ever wondered, before George Floyd died, Eric Gardner died, Trayvon Martin died, Tamir Rice died, a lot of people died, and African Americans only thought to ask the life-threatening why when George Floyd died. I talked about this in my book. Like, the reason slavery lasted that long is because African Americans didn't have the power to ask the question, why are you doing this to us? When you ask that question, be ready to die for that question. Because when you ask that question during those days, you will be lynched, you will be killed, your balls will be cut off because you asked the question. But if you want to cut my balls off, I'd rather you cut it off properly. But I will ask you, why are you doing this to me? To create a change we desperately need. So my point is to really answer your question of how they can stop institutionalized racism, institutional problem in America, is they need to start asking why. Like, don't give the system the breathing space to breathe, because they gave the system, they gave the institution the opportunity to breathe when Trayvon Martin died, when Tamir Rice died, when Eric Gardner died, when Castillo died. So they gave the system the opportunity to breathe. So when you come out and say the Black Lives Matter, you do it for 1 day, 2 days, and you go back in your room. Things never change. So African Americans, listen to this, African Americans have to wait for more than 10 more people to be killed by the police before they said, oh no, enough is enough. See, this is why I blame them partly. Apart from blaming the institution for not creating the opportunity for them to strive and change the system, that's why I said I blame them for, letting things stay this long, lie this long, for a lot of people to die before you say, no, enough is enough. So this is the problem, which I talked about in my book, in the chapter where I talked about the power of why. So for them to be able to change this institutional problem, they need to be able to ask why we are being oppressed, and be ready to die for that question. Because if you ask why, you will be lynched, you will be ostracized by the media, you will be lynched by the media, which was what happened to Mr. Colin Kaepernick, which I also talked about in my book. He had the audacity to kneel during the national anthem to ask, why are you people maltreating us? He had because he had the power to ask, to kneel. So they crucified him. Fox News nailed him, and he was banned from playing football till now. He's not playing football because he had the audacity, the power to ask why. So African Americans, to change this institutional racism, they need to get involved, be proactive, and be able to ask why. If they have that power to ask why, I think things will start changing for them. Really, that is my take.
Okay, thanks so much. And I can actually, I relate with your view, actually, because if I want to put it maybe from Africa perspective, I'm not, yeah, let me use Africa as a case study, like for example, we both understand currently what is happening in Africa, where we have people be governed by their own brothers. Let's put it like that as a case study, like for example. At the same time, we or the people refused to actually ask the question, why? You understand?
Exactly.
Like for example, now you have a president. At the end of the year, he will tell you, we borrowed so amount of money to work. And the people will like, yeah, he borrowed. They are happy because their government took a loan from the Western world, like for example, but they failed to understand, they failed to ask the question why such money was borrowed and how do you utilize such money. Which means maybe I don't want to put it, maybe this question of why it should it be maybe Africa, maybe right from ages, lack this uh, these ideas, like to ask a question or why. You understand? Because if we have
Yeah.
to, if we have to check from the slavery era, we talk about them lacking the question to ask, why am I in this situation? Now we're still talking in 21st century. The followers still refuse to ask their leaders, why are we in this situation? Upon all the natural resources that we have, why are we still here? So I think this is actually, you actually did a great work here by actually lecturing us on the importance of
Oh
saying
no,
why.
yeah. You need to be able to ask why. Listen, which is what I also use the analogy in my book as well. Imagine I have kids, yeah. I have 4 kids. Imagine, like you said, the African mentality, the way we're brought up. We are really not brought up to question authority. You know what I mean? We're not
Yeah,
brought up to question authority. So it's sometimes really hard for you to kind of adapt and start questioning authority after maybe you've become older. Imagine I have a child, yeah, my daughter, and imagine I'm telling my daughter, for example, which I also talked about in the book.
yeah,
Tell my daughter, uh, Trayan, you need to you need to you need to walk. You need to walk from here for example, to the next street, or you need to do this, or you need to do that. When I give my daughter such an instruction, if my daughter looks at me and asks me the question, why, daddy? Why do I have to do that, daddy? What that tells me automatically is, oh, I need to be careful now. If this child can ask me why I'm asking her to go on an errand to do this particular thing, that means I need to be careful how I deal with her, because she's smart enough to understand that where I'm sending her to is not right, or what I'm asking her to do is not right. If
sure.
she now tells me, daddy, why, that should shock me as a father. Okay, I'm like, okay, now it's like she understands. So that very split second of you as a father gaining that understanding and your daughter asking you why makes you readjust yourself with the way you deal with your daughter, because you now know she understands what you're doing, what you're saying, asking her to do. So using that analogy is, if you talked about Africa, for example, with the way borrowing money and they can't ask why. They cannot ask why, like I said, because, apart from the fact that we are not built like that, because they are also scared to be, to be ostracized, for example. They are scared to be killed. They are scared to receive a deadly consequence. Because when you question authorities, mostly in Africa, sometimes you get killed. That was why I said in my book, I also made a reference, like the reason slavery lasted that long was because African Americans didn't have the power to ask a life-threatening why, a why that you would die for, a why that they will cut off your balls, hang you, and lynch you. You might say, you might have some people who will argue with me and say, okay, they didn't ask, but they were killed. But it's not asking one time and you get killed and you stop. That was why I made a reference to the Black Lives Matter movement, for example. They are doing something great. But why do they have to wait until George Floyd died before they said, now enough is enough? Why did they have to wait? When Trayvon Martin was killed, that was when, or when the first person was killed, that was when they could have said enough is enough, but they had to wait. We're not able to ask why, though they asked, but it was not, life-threatening enough to make the authorities say, you know what, these people are ready to die for this cause now. Even if we kill them, even if we take out a machine gun to gun everybody down, they're still going to continue to ask until we change policies, change institutional policies to give them equal opportunity. So to answer your question, like what you just said, the African context, in the African context, that is the problem we have. Africans, we are too scared of life. We love our lives too much. That is why you see things, a leader will be misbehaving, misappropriating fund, misusing fund meant for the people, but still the African man cannot ask why, because he's afraid to die. That's the problem we face in Africa.
Okay, thanks so much. Thanks for highlighting more on these issues, because it's very important to always ask why. And I think even from my experience here with how even the white people, they try to, how does it happen? What happened? They ask questions a lot. Yeah, they ask questions a lot. If you're one of the people that had the opportunity to actually make yourself available, integrate and so on, you will definitely benefit more on what we have, what we call that a civic orientation. You're living in a society and how you should be. So now going to the next question now, when you were making your analysis on issues that have to on your book, actually you're making, like, for example, just like your what you said now, American being a father of many children, and in the same time loving some and without and not loving others. Now should you, or would you use that as a kind of, to answer this other question? Would you use it as a mistake, which I wouldn't want to put it as a strategy? Because here the next question is actually, what is your advice to everyone out there that still believed the power of human superiority and inferiority from the perspective of white supremacy and Black inferiority?
Well, that is a very interesting question. Like I said, during my opening talk, we are one human race. That is why I don't buy into the school of thought of people like Carlton Cone, who thinks, human race is divided into 5 categories. You know what I mean? So then I also use the animal kingdom. Like we just call them animal kingdom. You know what I mean? So for you to, for someone to claim superiority, a white person to claim superiority over a Black man, is a very not I wouldn't call it ignorant, because when you say somebody's ignorant, is somebody that doesn't have information, you call the person ignorant. In my book, I talked about, like, don't agree with the people or the school of thought who believes racists and white supremacists are ignorant, because they are not ignorant. A 5 years old kid is ignorant. A 6 years old kid is ignorant. A 6 years old kid is ignorant. Maybe a 10-year-old child is ignorant, but not an adult who you know, like if you go to the supermarket and you steal, you're going to get punished or you're going to get arrested by the police. If you know that information as a person, as a white person, that if you go to the supermarket and you steal something, you're going to be arrested by the cops or by the police and get punished and thrown into jail, then you are not fucking ignorant. Sorry for my language. Then you're not ignorant. Maybe kids are watching. Then you're not ignorant. If you are a teenager or a 60-year-old man who does not insult the parents, you respect your parents, then don't tell me when it comes to race issue that people like that are ignorant about it. They don't have information about black and white or whatever, about the concept of black and white. Don't tell me they're ignorant, because they are not ignorant. So for me, to answer your question, the concept of superiority over white people claim superiority or black inferiority is actually a thing like I said, I talked about in my book. That was why I have a subtitle: What if racists and white supremacists were right? What if racists and white supremacists were right? What did I try to do with this book? I tried to talk about the narrative they're saying, like I said earlier, like white and blacks are not born equal. Of course, I personally, I'm in that school of thought that we are equal. Don't get me wrong, because when people read this, they see this, they say, what's this author trying to say, that we're not born equal? I am in the school of thought that white and black are equal, because that white man or that white girl is my cousin, according to Professor Jean Elliott in her own study, that white people are cousins of black people. So if you are my cousin, you came out from me, then it's like a son, a father giving birth to a son. When you give birth to your son, automatically that son grows up, that son is you and you are your son. You know what I mean? When the mother gives birth to a daughter, your mother, the daughter is the mother and the mother is the daughter. So it's like that. So I am in the school of thought that blacks and whites are born equal. But I personally wrote this very chapter that we're not born, what if they're right, because of the stupid racists, the stupid white supremacists or white nationalists who believes that they are superior. So I'm like, okay, if you people are saying that you are superior, I want to give a counter argument that you are actually not superior, that you're actually not superior to the black person, and that all you are saying about black and white not being born equal. Maybe you're right where we're not born equal. Maybe you're right. So I had to use different, concept and analogy to answer the question. So in this book, so the question of white superiority and black inferiority should be something we don't condone. Because which I did, I named like a million things that would categorize or classify black people to be superior to white people. But if I want to start telling you, because a black man is the word, or black man came first, or black man is this, black man is that. If I start to do that, that means what we are trying to defeat, the racism we are trying to defeat, we are now, being the racism or being the racist or the black supremacists we are trying to defeat, which will not be right. So the point is, anybody that thinks about white superiority, that person should is just being stupid, because one thing that will create peace, world peace, is acknowledgement. White people, they need to start acknowledging black people, because the question you asked earlier,
Yeah.
if the world can ever respect a black man, maybe respect is a big word, but maybe respect is such a big word, really. But what the world really needs to do is to acknowledge the black man, regardless of the status, regardless of the economic power we bring along, we carry, or maybe our economic power is not like your economic power, doesn't mean you should acknowledge a black man. So when you talk about the inferiority, black inferiority as well, any black person that feels inferior needs a therapy.
Mm.
Any black man or woman that feels inferior to a white person needs a serious therapy, and I will be willing to give the person for free. So what am I trying to say? Black inferiority should not be something black people should condone as well. We shouldn't condone black inferiority, because there's a book written by this American radio presenter, Charlamagne the God. He talks about the book. The book, he talked about black privilege. That's what he talked about in the book, black privilege. How black people have privileges and stuff like that. So if I want to kind of like translate that into what we're talking about now, about black inferiority.
Yeah.
Black people all over the globe that feels inferior, like I said, needs therapy. They should be proud. It's a proud thing to be a black person. You have to have pride in yourself being a black person. If you know your history, if you know where you're coming from, how you got here, you should have every sense of pride in you as a black person, regardless of what the world, the Western world, has thrown at a black man. We are still standing. Regardless of what they've thrown at us, slavery, colonization, we are still standing. So every black man should count himself a privileged person being black. So no need, no time to condone inferiority complex. And any white person that thinks about superiority over a black person, that person is not just sick, is stupid. There's difference between stupidity and ignorance. You are not ignorant, you know the truth, but you just don't want to admit the fact and acknowledge that the black man is the world. Black is the world. You don't just want to acknowledge the fact. So you're trying to protect that thing of like, oh, my skin is more superior than yours. So it's stupid. Anybody that says that. So that is, and I gave them some recommendation or medicine in this very book. So anyone that feels that needs to get a book to read it.
Thanks so much, man. I must really say it's actually a great honor having you around today. And just without, let me say, in our last question, which actually not really a question, to actually be on your last contribution on where people can get the book and so on. If you're watching for the first time, don't forget to follow us on this page, and at the same time, don't forget to share this video. And actually, we just to make you understand where we are, we actually have an author in the house who happens to publish a new book which he titled The Black Picasso. So it's actually a medicine, you will like call it, you know.
Medicine.
Yeah, it's actually a medicine to heal that in order to fill the gap and to heal those wounds that you that will actually help you to grow, you know, socially, psychologically, and so on. So at the same time, being a black person, also you also need this, not just already white people. You also need this because it will also help you to grow and having that self-confidence of who you are as a human being, not as a person of color in any society that you live, and
Exactly.
giving you that confidence to be able to resist and be able to build, or to be able to express your intellectual capacity without feeling that you don't belong to that class. So he needs, there are so many topics that he actually discussed on that book, even asking if God was a racist or if God is
God
a
is a
racist.
racist. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that you will definitely enjoy that book. So
Yeah.
so we don't really have much time. So thanks once again, Samuel Iroho, Irosa,
IRISOH,
for
yeah,
your, yeah,
yeah,
for
IRISOH,
your,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, for your time with us, who happens to be actually a product from my same from my university, which happens to be Rosali University in Eboma, and he
Yeah.
happens to study business administration. And at the same time, guess what? Then he moved for that to gain his master degree in Belgium. That is actually massive. So please, what is your last message to the listeners out there, and how can they get this book, and where can they get this book?
Oh, thank you very much. Before I talk about where to get a book, I really want to encourage Black people, Africans, to start really capacity building. And I want to use the opportunity to also talk about like a program, a mentorship program. I will send the details to you. You put it on your page. A
Sure.
mentorship program by which is being done by Professor Patrice Lumumba. So on the 27th of this month, that is next Saturday, Professor Lumumba and Dr. Arikena, which is the who was the former chairperson of the AU to the United States, will be, doing a mentorship program via Zoom to a lot of young Africans. So anybody, a Black person, wherever you are, if you're watching, you're African, even if you're a white person as well, you want to be mentored by these great people. I will put I'll send information to my brother to put it on his page.
Sure.
You can you can register for the program. If you're living in Belgium, living anywhere around the world, in Italy, anywhere, you register for it, and then you pay just $5 to be able to get a passcode to get into the program. So this is a mentorship program that is prepared by Professor Patrice Lumumba and Dr. Arikena for young Africans, for young Black people. So I want to just put that out there as well. And also, I want to say to everybody out there, like, this is the time, no matter the color of skin you have, white, Black, this is time for us to unite, because the world is plunging. We are in a nosedive. Because if this doesn't change, it's going to get to a point where white and Black will be at each other's neck. I'm predicting this if it doesn't change. If racism and discrimination is not eradicated from our society, it will get to a point where whites and Black will be at each other's neck. And when that time happens, it's going to be difficult to turn back the ends of time. So the world needs to hear this. We need to get rid of racism and discrimination in our community, in our country, in our world, because this is a global war. We're living in a global world. We're all passing through this global village. We need to get rid of these vices that will tear humanity apart. If we don't do that, we are all doomed. And yeah, that is pretty it. And for my book, to get my book, you can get the Black Picasso on Amazon. If you live in the United States, you can get the Black Picasso on Amazon. It's cheaper for you to get it there on Amazon, on Barnes and Noble, on Waterstone, or from Walmart. You can get it there. If you live in Europe, the best place to get the Black Picasso will be also Barnes and Noble. You also can also get it from bol.com, bol.com. You can get it from there, or just Google the Black Picasso. You will see a lot of online bookshop where you can get the book. So that is it. How to get the book? Please go get it because it is a good read. It will give you the mechanism to deal with racism because racism should not be tolerated in this 21st century because we all are supposed, I use the word as are supposed to be one human race. I use the word supposed because there are some people who still believe, like the white supremacists and the white and the racists, who still believe that they are superior. But like I said, I give them their medicine here. Maybe they are right that we are actually not born equal. So that is why you need to read it to understand the book. And the topic I talked, sorry, my brother, the topic I talked about classism instead of racism. I talked about the white dictionary. I talked about the white dictionary, like I said. I talked about snippet into racist narrative. So just get a book. The book is a very great read. So that is it, my brother. And thank you for giving me your time to be able to talk about my book as well and on this interview as well.
Thank you so much, man. I must say it's actually a great honor, having you around and at the same time being able to share this moment and also exchange ideas with you. And I must say, even the listeners out there, they have actually benefited one or two ways in your analysis on what race is actually what race is about, and at the same time what identity is all about. And just like what you said, we all have one race that is human race, and there is nothing like being a black man or being a white man. So it's hard time we all put all these things, with his mechanism, with his book. It's hard time that we all put on into practice most of these things that we have learned in this program. And the same thing, most of the things also that we will also gain, most of the information that we also gain in his book by buying his book. It's not really it's very cheap. Actually, it's very cheap, so you can
It's very cheap. It's like $10. And the book is
yeah.
$10. Every African, every home in Europe, a white person should have the book because it's very cheap. It's not expensive. 10 euros, $10, you get a book. It's a good read, and we need to start changing, this social construct. Like, for example, that is why sometimes I really I get so frustrated when you see someone who is really educationally sophisticated, who is sophisticated to the teeth educationally. Like, you have like someone who is a professor, maybe you study to the highest level, and still you put out stuff to create divergence among human beings. That is why I said to you right away, while we're talking, that is why, people like Carlton Kuhn, I don't buy into their school of thought because they categorize human race into different categories. So people like that, people, even I've talked about it in my book as well. Someone like Joseph Conrad and Joyce Casey, the same thing they did. They portrayed Africa, in this light, painted Africa, so dark, so, for their own sinister agenda. So that is why, like I said, I really detest people like that. I resent people like that. You are so sophisticated, you are so educated, and still you put out things to separate humanity, to cause problems for humanity. And that is what we're trying to fix. So thank you again once again, my brother, for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. Thank you so much. It's really a great honor. And as time goes on, also, we also, in any of our next topics, also, we'll also be glad to have you around, and at the same time
Definitely, anytime.
to come and share your wisdom with us. And don't forget, tomorrow evening at 10 p.m. we will also be here to discuss issues, share opinions on issues that actually concerns humanity and that concern how we all can live in peace across the world. So for now, we say goodbye to all of you, all the viewers out there, and we hope to see you guys tomorrow 10 p.m. Thank you, and thanks again. Thanks, Samuel, for your time with us.
Thank you for having me. God bless you.
I really appreciate it.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye. Yeah.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.